Good evening and welcome to the Congo Hour. I am your host, Waynna. Trippy is not here this week. Hopefully he will be back next week. But as always, the show must go on. I want to thank everyone who encourages Trippy and I when you see us out anywhere, even on our social media pages. We appreciate all the love that you are giving us. It's greatly appreciated. And today, this evening, I will be speaking with someone who is very dear to me, although we don't like talk all the time, but when we see each other, it's mad love all the time. And Trippy gave me a call to say that she wanted to come on, so I reached out to her. And when I found out what it was she wanted to talk about, I could relate to what she wants to talk about this evening. So I'm just happy, not happy, I don't want to use the word happy. I am, I can't even think of the word that I am, but she's very brave to come on to talk about what she's going to come and talk about on this evening. So with no further ado, welcome to the Congo Hour.
Waynna, it is a pleasure to see you, my beautiful sister.
Thank you.
Your smiling face is worth every mile from Dover to Wilmington.
Thank you. I forgot you live in Dover.
Yes. Well, that's a good thing because there's an hour to the top and an hour and some change to the bottom.
Right,
so
yeah.
It works out pretty well.
Yeah, you're right in the middle. Yeah. So thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. When we had our conversation, I was blown away by what you shared with me that you're about to share with our audience. However, my heart was beating out of my chest because I too experienced the same thing that you did, and just grateful that we both survived it.
Amen.
Yeah. So where do you want to start? Where did it all begin, your story?
Well, the topic for our show today is domestic violence. I never thought that I was going to be the face and a spokeswoman and an advocate for victims of that particular space. Mm-hmm. My story is unlike a lot of ladies and children who have been victims of domestic violence. I think the statistics show that it takes 7 acts of domestic violence before you finally get the courage to walk away from it permanently. Most people, when they see me, they see somebody who radiates confidence and strength and all those great empowering characteristics. And I certainly have suffered a lot in silence. And so probably around 2021 was when it became extremely dangerous. I had an occurrence that actually sent me to the hospital. I had some pretty severe cuts on both of my legs and had to have 7 stitches under the bottom of my foot. My abuser was charged with 2nd-degree felony assault with a deadly weapon. Because we were coming out of a COVID environment, the courts were still sluggish and woefully behind. So it wasn't until last year in February of 2022 that he was actually convicted, and he took a plea for a 3rd-degree assault. He was on probation for 18 months. He had to take 26 weeks of domestic violence courses as a part of the punitive measures of his probation. And at the 26th week, he assaulted our 12-year-old daughter. She had a concussion as a result of that assault. He was most recently convicted of child abuse in March of this year. They allowed him to continue on with probation. He has GPS monitoring. They give him 100 yards to stay away from where I live.
100?
100 yards where I work, where the children go to school. 100 yards is 6 houses down from me. Yes.
That's where I want to stop right there. 100 yards.
100 yards. That's by law.
So if he wanted to, he could be 6 houses down from across the street watching what you all are doing.
Not only if he wants to, he has been.
Wow.
And so because his sentencing order is being carried out with the no contact provision with me and our children, it has to be executed and enforced by probation and parole. And I found out that cute little caveat when I had a couple of instances, and I reached out to the local police department, who could not even find the no contact order in their system at the time. So that was scary in and of itself. And although he's had convictions for the assault of me and the child abuse of our 12-year-old daughter, I just recently was able to obtain a protection from abuse order because of technical difficulties in how it was approached to get a modification on the no unlawful contact that I had with him years ago. So that expired on the 26th of April, and up until the 21st of June, I was without a protection from abuse order. The court basically said to me, "What has he done since he set foot out of jail?" And I tearfully broke down and said, what more does he need to do after all he's already done? So I've decided to become very vocal and very public with my story. Abusers are allowed to utilize false allegations in the form of PFA filings to accuse you of all kind of things. Mm-hmm. And within the last 16 months of my life, I've spent $11,000 trying to clear my name from false allegations. Yes. Mm. And so I've had some issues not only with the process of how to navigate family court when you find yourself on the end of a trauma, mm-hmm. and you are sitting in the midst of whatever it is you're expected to cognitively function well, right. And yes. Sometimes you make mistakes. And because I missed dotting an I or crossing a T, some of the things really fell apart when it came time to get in front of a commissioner. And so for that reason, I've been unsuccessful in being able to get the modifications and do the things that were necessary to do. And I wanted to start getting the word out about how we close some legal loopholes, mm-hmm. within our Delaware legislative policy that will give a deeper level of resources to victims of domestic violence. First and foremost, when you're going through the trauma and you have to be able to do these things, the advocates that you may find at the police station, mm-hmm. or even in your local courthouse, they are not trained legal professionals, and they can only kind of point you in the direction that you need to go with the forms you need to fill out. And if you don't fill out those forms properly, mm-hmm. they will come back to bite you later. And that has been the issue that I've had. And so when I found myself in that predicament and going through some of the processes, I said, there's been some very absurd things that have happened to me inside, mm-hmm. of these courtrooms. And I've listened to some of the neighboring people sitting in the waiting room, mm-hmm. waiting for their matters to be heard. And there's a common thread there. Lack of resources, lack of being able to get somebody to be a voice for you when you feel shaky or powerless. Mm-hmm. I'm not an uneducated person. I have a few letters behind, mm-hmm. my name, but I don't have a JD, so I don't have a law degree. And even as articulate as I can be, when you are under the stress of your situation, sitting across the room from somebody who has caused you tremendous physical and emotional abuse, it's very hard to have all your faculties present and be able to adequately represent yourself. So one of the things I would definitely like to see are some resources that are put into place so that people can access the justice system without it being so cost prohibitive. Everybody has the right to their day in court and to be defended, especially a victim. There's too many people that are staying trapped in their circumstances and, mm-hmm. their situations just because they don't have a viable means to escape.
Right. I was thinking, I know that you are highly educated. However, there are some young ladies out there who are not. So I can only imagine what they have to go through.
It's staggering. Mm-hmm. And I do believe that many stay trapped in their abusive situations because they don't know how to navigate it. There's an abundance of resources out there, so you can hop on, your smart device and go to your Google or Hey Siri or whoever you call upon to get your information
Right.
to you, right? And you should be able to find some resources within the local area that will point you out to some of the domestic violence advocacy organizations that can help you kind of navigate the experience. I think one of the most prevailing messages that I would like to get out there to people, if you're suffering from a situation where you're in a domestic violence situation, get help. Get help now. If you've got that little still small voice on the inside of you that says something isn't right, Maya Angelou said it best, when somebody shows you who they are, believe them the first time.
Yes.
Don't wait.
And oftentimes we don't.
We don't. We ignore that voice. And because of that, people don't really know what they need to do, to get out of it. But there is a progression. And what you really have to do is create an exit strategy for yourself that allows you to safely leave your abusive relationship. And that means that you may need to start putting some money away somewhere. You may need to figure out what your support system looks like. If you are like me and you don't have a tremendous amount of biological family in the area, you may need to call on your church family or somebody that you can trust and truly trust, because everybody's not your friend.
That's so
and
true.
Sometimes you will have a couple of Judases in your camp who will be friends with you and your abuser, and they will go back and forth between the two of you and create more problems than you can even imagine. So you have to be strategic about how you get out of your domestic violence situation, your abusive partner relationship. You may even have children that are being abused in your home. It might not even be you, but you need to learn how to be an advocate for those children and get them with the proper resources to get them out of the situation as well.
Yeah. If you don't mind, I want to get a little personal. Are you okay with
Sure.
that? When did it all start with you?
I can honestly say that it started 12 years ago, almost 13. It's hard to talk about. He's actually had his hands around my throat on 3 separate occasions. One of them was witnessed, and 2 of the times was while I was pregnant. So I'm ashamed to say that I rationalized situations. I made excuses for it. For whatever reason that we tried to make it okay with us, we do that. And it's a human thing, and I'm guilty of it. I should have left a long time ago, and I didn't.
I want to say, you used the word ashamed. Don't be ashamed, because there's so many of us that have done that.
You feel a sense of shame, though, because I have had, and I think that this has probably been the hardest part of telling my story, is that every time you tell it, it traumatizes you all over to a certain degree. And I've had people ask me that very shaming question: why didn't you leave? Why didn't you leave? And you find yourself really struggling to make people who it's not their lived experience understand why you felt that you needed to continue on where you were. Most people know that I'm a public figure. One of the things that he long ago threatened me with was that he would drag my name through the mud, that he would ruin my reputation, that he would deplete me financially. And he has had a plan that he has been executing flawlessly ever since I made my decision to leave. And I think that I decided that I wanted to leave years ago, but being able to create that exit strategy was important to me. And how I left it was going to determine where I am. Now, I can't tell you that I'm super comfortable in my skin. I'm still navigating the process. I still have several hurdles to overcome in the courts over the next 6 months, 6 to 8 months. And it is not easy, but I can assure you that I lay my head down on my pillow after every hard day, knowing that I no longer am under the same roof with my abuser. And it gives me a comfort to know that even though my children are having difficulties navigating the trauma themselves, that we feel safer. And even though it's hard, they say to me, we're so grateful that we don't have to live in that environment anymore. So you have to sometimes just be okay with the light on the particular step that you're on at that moment. And somebody gave me a book years ago, and you just never know how things along your journey will give you the inner strength to be able to get through these things. I'm grateful that I have a faith in something higher. Thank you, Lord, for always watching over me and always putting people on my path to be able to help me through this awful process, because without a faith in something higher than where I'm at right now, I think I would have been lost.
Yeah. While you were sharing, I was like really fighting back tears too.
It's hard.
Because you think about, like mine was years ago, and like I was visualizing while you were talking, visualizing all the abusive things that happened to me and all of the excuses that I made and the length of time that I stayed. And then I would leave, and then I would still, for some reason, go back to the same thing that I was trying to get away from so badly.
Well, I don't know about you, but I think that's probably what bothered me most, was how could someone who is book smart not be savvy enough to recognize what I was going through, and then when I did, why did I allow myself to go back into it? So this last go round, I actually got on Google and said, hey Google, why do I keep going back to my abusive relationship? And it pointed me to 1,000 different resources, because we are not alone in that question or that battle. Correct. And being able to gravitate towards someone who has experienced what you've experienced and have them share their experience is liberating. It's freeing. I have figured out what the draw was. I know that when I took a look in it, and this is something, the courts don't really look into it. They don't even classify it as a mental illness, but they have what's called a narcissistic personality disorder. And so when I started listening to that, there is narcissistic supply that the person gets something out of. There is trauma bonding. And so I fell under all of that. And so out of every trauma that I would experience, he would get to a place to where it had just gone inches away from me just leaving. And it would be, oh, I'm so sorry. And the romance and all of the things to do to get you not to leave. Yes. And then there's that period where you feel kind of okay. And
that it might not happen again.
And then as soon as he felt that he was comfortable and I wasn't going anywhere, the cycle of abuse would start all over again. So I would rationalize that whatever happened was an isolated incident, that perhaps I had done something that had contributed.
Just getting ready to ask you
to it, you know, and you blame yourself. Yes. That there was some situational stress that was an aggravating or a mitigating factor, or something that, caused him to respond in that way. And it wasn't until I said, this is not okay. This is not how I want my children. Now, my fun fact, I have 10 beautiful children, right? And so I have 4 boys and I have 6 girls. We share the last 2 together. And all the rest of them are adults. They have successfully emancipated themselves from my wallet, praise Jesus. But those 2 full-timers, they're 11 and 12.
Oh gosh, that's so funny.
And over the years, I have always taught my boys that there's no situation that would be acceptable for them to put their hands on their girlfriend, their significant other, their wife, and that if anyone ever showed up at my door with that type of a tale to tell, that they would have me to deal with. And then with my girls, I wanted them to understand what love really looked like and how a man who loves you should treat you and what you should not accept. And I found myself being hypocritical. And I think that was where I started having a lot of internal conflict because it was more of a do as I say and not as I do kind of thing. And my kids really started to call me out on it. Mom, we're gonna call you out on your BS, okay? And it was those moments that were very much so reality checks. And it caused me to have to do an internal search and to really take a look at what I was communicating to these very impressionable young people that I was charged to raise with a sense of what was right and what was wrong. So I think that kind of helped perpetuate me to a place to where I'm really struggling to help these younger two girls be okay with themselves. The 12-year-old, she was the one that was hurt. She was really questioning her self-worth, and to have the major male figure in your life hurt you. It sets the tone for a lot of things. And so while you're trying to figure out who you are in relationship to the rest of the world, your peer group, and all of that.
Especially at 12 years old.
And it's tough because she's a brick house for a 12-year-old, okay? She is almost physically my equal. She's very well endowed. And so that the girls, you remember being a 7th grade girl. I don't know if you've ever watched any of these cartoons, but one of my favorite one is Home. And I think Rihanna plays the character on there, the young lady, and she says in her Caribbean accent, 7th grade girls are mean, right? And so I laugh about that every time that we're watching it because she's 7th grade this year. And so those girls were very mean. And so the ones who are a little bit more curvy and the boys are looking at, she had hair that she could sit on. She was doing things to augment herself, trying just to, fit in and feel okay with her surroundings. So this certainly did not help her at all. So, I really started to take a look at this and knew that I had a much deeper responsibility, even within my own 4 walls, to emulate better in front of my children. I am their biggest role model. And if I fail them, what can I expect the world to impart on them? Very
true. Let's take a short break and we'll come back, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Please stay tuned. We will be right back.
DETV has been Delaware's premium provider of creative digital and broadcasting solutions that bridges communities and connects people. We create great stories for all audiences. We deliver independent news throughout Delaware. We are digital platform innovators. And we develop marketing and sales solutions so you can stay connected to your audience. Now, why do we do what we do here on DETV? We do it because we care. So, keep watching and follow us on all of our social media platforms. Remember, DETV, online, on air, on time.
Welcome back to the Congo Hour. I hope that our conversation will encourage someone, male or female, that is going through domestic violence to please seek help. I'm going to continue my conversation with Donyale. So, Donyale, everyone that watches the Congo Hour knows that I am an advocate for mental health. I've had my therapist come on, Shay Marriott, just to share some things that I've been through and how I got to where I am to get over those things. Might have to call her tomorrow because this conversation has brought up a lot of, no, it's not your fault. It's not your fault. Old things. Like I shared with you, I was visualizing my abuser when you were speaking about yours. And it's extremely important to me that we seek a therapist to help us through, to give us the tools that we need to, I'll say, manage what we're going through, because it's very hard to get over it. So please tell me that you're going to a counselor.
So I'm just going to give you a little background about
Okay.
Donyale. So I served in the Air Force, and in the early 90s, I did 4 years. One of the things and growing up in a military family, my dad was a retired Air Force guy.
Okay.
And so we've got a long legacy of service. I've got 2 sons that are serving. One's active duty Navy, one's active duty Air Force.
Okay.
So in that culture, seeking out counseling or having any type of diagnoses with depression or anxiety, especially in communities of color, there's a stigma that's attached to that. And so it took me a great while to get out of that prescription of thinking. Mm-hmm. That is a very culture embedded thing to get over. Mm-hmm. And so once you can detach yourself from the stigma and really understand that seeking out therapy to deal with your issues, sometimes you have packed away so many traumas. And if you're like me, I had a closet for things. Mm-hmm. Okay, so my favorite thing to say was, I don't have time to deal with that. Okay, and so I would find a shelf, a closet, a little place with some cobwebs under my bed, a little box to shove things in.
Mm-hmm. The rug.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So by the time you get to the place to where you realize that not only do you need to deal with your current trauma, you need to unpack all the rest of the stuff, that can be overwhelming. And so when I started to really take a look at myself and look at some of perhaps the reasons that I rationalized things the way that I did, it was because of my inability to address the things in a real-time fashion. So at this stage of my life, I'm 53 years old. I have had some children who have dealt with some very serious issues. One of my children was extremely suicidal as a teenager. Oh, wow. And so her traumas traumatized the whole family. Mm-hmm. And so we started out with one of the local children's organizations that helped us kind of navigate that. Her therapist was a great lady, and if you're like me, you have to find someone who you can identify with, yes. Someone who you feel gets you and understands you and can relate to your experiences. So for that reason, you have to find somebody within your own demographic that works for you in that regard. So being able to get a good match is very important when you enter into therapy. For my current situation, the children needed to have somebody that I felt wasn't too far displaced from their age. It's really funny. My oldest is 33, and the baby of my tribe is 11. And so 22 years difference. There's so much that's changed in our world.
Yes, it has.
Mom, you have to get on TikTok, and you have to do this, and you have to learn how to do that. And it's a different ball game out here raising children. Yes. So I was 19, just 2 months shy of my 20th birthday when my oldest was born. And so I felt like I still had it going on at that point, and I could relate, and we could, it was just different. Yes. And now I'm so far removed from some of those things. I had to find somebody that could relate to them in a way that they could feel okay about opening up.
Wait, I'm sorry. Are you going to a therapist?
I am not seeing someone currently. I see someone with the children. So we do family sessions. And so I talk about through that, about what's going on currently in our situation and how it affects us as a family unit. And there is a practical reason why I have not went and sought somebody just to sit down on the couch and kick my feet up and unload my woes, because during this ordeal, my abuser has used court filings to malign me. And one of the things that he has accused me of is mental illness, of all things. Yes.
You have mental illness.
I have mental illness. I am, in his words, I'm bipolar. I have been hospitalized for my mental illness. I've had a whole case history of treatment that he's not been able to produce one shred of evidence to support in the courts. But you and I both know that the court of public opinion is something different.
Yes.
And so because he embellishes these things in his filings, even though we're not there to fight that particular battle in court, I don't even get a chance to say, no, that's not true, Your Honor, because it's not the purpose for what we're there for. So I'm still waiting for my particular day in court to say, and kind of over some of those things have come out.
So
but
let's slow down. When you go to court, because I need our audience to be educated.
okay.
When you go to court, you can't say, Your Honor, I've never been hospitalized, I'm not bipolar. You're not allowed to say those things.
Well, here's the beauty in our system.
Okay.
When somebody files something and alleges something about you, the burden of proof is on the person who files that instrument. But see, he's done his damage because he's already muddied the water by just putting those things out there.
Right. Yes.
Okay? So whether or not he's successful in proving his allegation, to him, I honestly feel is immaterial because he's done the damage that he sought to do by tarnishing.
So you're stigmatized by
exactly
the
courts.
allegations that he
That's right.
said. Yes.
And so people are like, and I'm sorry, it's the human nature of things. I can just see somebody right now going home saying, girl, you just will never know what came across my desk today at the courthouse.
Right.
The sensational news is what people gravitate towards. And so for that reason, I've been very reserved about even being able to actively participate with a therapy environment because of his allegations. I don't want a therapist to have to be pulled in, to make some sort of a clinical report. And, you can't be honest and transparent about dealing with your issues if you feel like your life is under a magnifying glass.
Yes.
Now, my children, they absolutely need to tell their story.
Yes.
They absolutely need to let that therapist know what they're going through. At some point, that therapist will probably be called in as an expert to testify or give a report or be able to substantiate a report. And those things are going to let the courts know the traumas that my girls have been through. Now, because he took a plea deal, my girls never got their day in court. They have never to this day been able to tell their story. And he's been out proliferating mistruths about one of the things that has happened in family court. I came to the court to ask for a modification of my no unlawful contact.
Yes.
And because I did not have my girls there to testify that day, he told a very it just goes all to my core, a very strong untruth, an out and out lie about what happened that day. And he made it seem like that 12-year-old attacked him. And because the girls weren't there to tell their side of the story, they didn't find him in a situation where they thought that an abuse had occurred. It was atrocious. It's one of the reasons why I decided to come forward with my story, because it's heart-wrenching to have a lower court rule on a matter that the court didn't even have jurisdiction over, and actually caused problems in the criminal side of the matter as well. But that's another issue. That's another whole issue. We could talk a whole hour about that altogether. Yes. But however, for the reasons that I have stated, my own personal traumas, I have not had a chance to really unpack them.
Oh, you said your court might be in another 6 months. Is that what you said your date was?
So I have a divorce matter pending. I have a custody issue that's pending. The custody matter is not going to be heard until January 31st of 2024. Yes, over 6 months out. I'm frustrated. Our courts are severely backlogged.
From COVID.
And it's sad. It's super sad, because you're essentially trapped in the midst of your trauma, just in a suspended animation type moment, just watching, and where we should be able to afford some closure on these matters. There's no press to get that through. And so in the interim, he's able to continue harassing my life. And so that, that's another whole issue altogether. But, we were talking about the therapy and the environment and how critically important that is. It's been since December that the girls have been in therapy. So they are going into their 7th month. Okay. And they are just starting to scratch the surface of the trauma.
After 7 months.
After 7 months, because children, they're not trusting, and especially my youngest daughter. She's I'm not letting anybody into my inner sanctum. So.
Well, first of all, they're going to a total stranger.
Yes.
So
the rapport has to be built.
That's asking a whole bunch of questions, and they have no idea who this person is, and you're asking me a whole lot of questions.
Yes, so and I'm already a kid.
Right. Yeah.
How much more are you going to ask
child,
of me?
I'm traumatized.
That's right.
And
that's right.
So I understand.
So my goal was to help them. The 12-year-old, she was sleeping for days on end, Waynna.
Depression.
She was not eating.
Depression.
She was not able to engage in her academics.
Yeah. I know.
It's
those
numbing.
Signs. Yeah.
It's numbing.
Yeah.
And then she was having headaches because she sustained a concussion from the incident. So just all of that, it took from September to December to get to a place to where I said, well, we really got to go see somebody about this. We need to address this. And so, again, I sought someone that I felt that they would be able to relate to. Their therapist is young. She's Black.
Good.
Her husband does music, so she speaks their language, okay? And even though they can't always appreciate her corny jokes, she's been able to crack the ice to be able to build that rapport to now start working on the issues.
Good. So you won't be able to go until after you've had your day in court?
I think I would probably feel more comfortable waiting until that moment.
I can understand.
Fortunately enough, I've had people in my life who have been supportive. We actually went to a marriage counselor at one point. He got up and walked out of the therapy. I continued on with that therapist for a while, and he really kind of helped me unpack some of those things that I was dealing with in my marriage, and kind of gave me the strength and the wherewithal to navigate my own exit strategy. So I have all those things in my arsenal, in my toolbox. I stay very prayed up. I have people in my corner that kind of help me as I'm navigating
Yes,
this.
yes.
They check in regularly on me, and for those who are like me and suffer in silence, that is not a good place to be.
It's
So
really
you have to
not.
find a safe place where you can decompress at times.
Yeah. I want to thank you so much for being brave enough to come on to share your story, because as you stated earlier, there's so many of us who do all of this in silence, and we put on a facade as if everything is all right. So yeah, and
I call it the tears behind the smile.
yes, that's exactly what it is. Yeah. And I remember just making up all type of excuses of why I had bruises all over me. I hit the door, the cabinet, the whatever I would come up with. So yeah, we make excuses. We protect them for some odd reason. I don't know why we're not protecting ourselves. But if you would be so kind and take just a few minutes and share, I want you to look into the camera and just share with our viewing audience whatever you're led to share with them.
Sure.
Please.
Well, I cannot emphasize more that no one needs to suffer alone through these awful moments. Get help, and get help. The agencies are out there. They have staff 24/7. There's crisis intervention. There's hotlines. There are people that are out there that are able and willing to listen and connect you to resources. Take full advantage of those things. Find a safe space in your community to be able to navigate things through. And above all, make sure that you take care of yourself, whatever that means. If it's making sure that you are making some provisions to prepare to be able to stand on your own 2 feet financially. There are a million reasons that you might feel trapped in your circumstance. It might be that you have young children. It might be that you are dealing with a housing insecurity and not being able to live on your own. I know that it's scary. I know that just through my own lived experience that it is overwhelming. You have to just take one day at a time, one step at a time, and just make sure that you are working toward the goal of being able to get yourself into a safe place. You can't replace you, and there are people in your lives that will need you, and you won't want them to have to try and figure out how to replace you. It's a shameful statistic that there are people every day that are severely hurt or lose their lives as a result of domestic violence. So I cannot emphasize enough that you need to get help to get out.
Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, and I will definitely stay in contact with you throughout your court hearings and everything, but I want you to keep me posted too.
I sure will. And just to let you know, I have actively engaged with our local legislators.
Great.
This is an election season.
Yes.
And there are a lot of people who are out here vying for your vote. Make sure that if you are someone who is suffering with something like this, that you let them know that you want our local legislative policy to reflect more protections for domestic violence victims, and also that we need to do something more to hold our court judiciary accountable. I had a commissioner give my children to a homelessness situation, and there was nothing that I could do to hold her accountable for that, and I was very disgusted. Wow. So we have to do a better job. Unfortunately, in this particular state, when you have someone who is a court judicial officer, you have to go to the court on the judiciary, and it costs you anywhere from $5,000 to $25,000 to have somebody held accountable for what they are doing in these courts. And so my biggest mantra is that access to justice cannot be cost prohibitive.
Amen.
Amen.
I agree to that. Wow. Once again, I hope that if you know someone that has experienced domestic violence, please, please, please seek help. I'm going to take another break, and I will be back with our funeral announcements and community news.
Government doesn't make a move without an agenda, some type of plan. The problem is we haven't been on the agenda. Sometimes we're overlooked. Sometimes our interests aren't the interest of those in power. I'm your host, Kerwin Gaines, on DETV's new show, The Agenda. We're going to do our best to ensure that you, Delawareans, are knowledgeable about what's going on in the Assembly. Federal government, local government, it doesn't matter. We're going to do our best to ensure that folks that make the agenda on a daily basis have to answer for it. Let them explain what they're doing. If it affects you, it's on the agenda.
Welcome back to the show. Now for our community announcements and our funeral home announcements. We have Duffy's Hope Celebrity Basketball Game, which is going to be Saturday, August the 5th, and it's going to be held at the 76ers Field House right here in Wilmington, Delaware. And I know he was announcing some special guests, and I know one of his guests are going to be Little Meech. And he is the main character that played in BMF, if you ever had the chance or opportunity to watch it. If you haven't, I'm sure your children, grandchildren, nieces, and nephews knows exactly who he is. So for more information, please contact, one second, let me get, what is it? It's Duffy, Duffy, at Duffy's duffyshopeinc.org. Once again, it's Duffy at duffyshopeinc.org, or you can call 302-652-3532. That's probably the easiest way to get in contact with them. 302-652-3532. My next announcement is Brown Girls Rock, Saturday, July the 15th from 12 noon to 5 p.m. Tickets are on sale now. It's going to be held at the 1,000 Acres Farm, which is located at 260 South Reedy Point Road in Middletown. They're going to be a session called Mommy and Me. They're going to be educational sessions, a DJ, entertainment, moon bounce, pony rides, face painting, cupcakes, cupcake decorating. Oh, that's going to be fun. And vendors are welcome. There's going to be an author's row for those who are authors. There's also going to be food trucks. And tickets are on sale now. You have to go to browngirlsrock.org. Once again, that's browngirlsrock.org. And please, please, please support. I went last year and it was a great success. And it's for all ages. So like I said earlier, they're going to be a Mommy and Me session. So you're not too young or too old to attend. And then the 3rd District Neighborhood Planning Council is having a marketplace. And it's going to be Saturday, August the 19th from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Our rain date is going to be the 26th, and all are welcome. It's going to be an outside event, and it is going to be at 210 Vanderver Avenue in Wilmington. And we're going to have vendors, so we have vendor space available. And if you would like to be a vendor, vendor space is $25. You can contact me directly at 302-521-7325. So once again, it's the 3rd District Neighborhood Planning Council's Marketplace from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Saturday, August the 19th. All are welcome. And if you have a nonprofit organization, you are free. So please reach out. Want to thank you so very much for tuning into the Congo Hour. I know like my demeanor is a little low right now because as I shared earlier, Donyale just brought up some things, surfaced some things that I dealt with, but I'm glad that I survived. That's all I have to say about that. I'm definitely glad that I survived. So thank you for tuning in tonight. I pray that you were enlightened by domestic abuse. And I can't stress enough, if you know someone that is experiencing domestic abuse, please, please, please go seek help. If you, anyone that you know that is interested in coming on to the Congo Hour, please give us a call at 302-521-7325. So once again, thank you for tuning into the Congo Hour. Pray that this week is the best week of your life, and we will see you on next week. God bless and good night.